Dr. Lyra Sorrell's fingers moved with practiced precision over the holographic keyboard. The sterile glow of the lab lights barely reached her workstation, casting shifting shadows as lines of code filled the air in front of her. Her heart raced, each keystroke bringing her closer to what she had come here for, Novadinix's deepest secrets. The AI security system was faster than she expected. A red alert flashed across her screen. Unauthorized access detected, followed by the low hum of automated locks sealing the room. Damn it, Lyra whispered, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. She had planned for this, but the sensation of being trapped was still unnerving. Pulling out a pocket-sized decryption module, she connected it to the system's core. The hologram displayed a loading bar, creeping toward 100%. She glanced at the countdown on her wristband. Less than 2 minutes before the AI summoned reinforcements. A sudden click echoed in the room, followed by Victor Kane's voice, smooth and unhurried. "Dr. Sorrell," he said, his tone tinged with disappointment. "Curiosity is a dangerous thing. Especially when it's aimed at Novadinix." Lyra's eyes darted around, searching for the source of the voice. She spotted a surveillance camera swiveling toward her, its lens unblinking. "Funny," she said, feigning calm. "I thought innovation was your motto." "It is. But innovation needs boundaries, and you've crossed them." The decryption module beeped, a quiet victory in the tense moment. Lyra yanked it free and stuffed it into her satchel. "Boundaries," she muttered. "Spoken like a true tyrant." Victor chuckled. "Tyranny, freedom, they're just words. What matters is control. And you've just lost yours." The lights flickered. The air grew heavier as the temperature in the room began to rise. The AI was attempting to flush her out with heat regulation. Lyra activated a small jammer on her wrist, disrupting the system temporarily. "Let's see how well your boundaries handle this," she said, sprinting toward the emergency exit. The corridor outside was eerily silent, but her escape route was clear, at least for now. She tapped her communicator. "Alex, are you there?" A crackle, then a familiar voice. "Barely. What's going on?" "I've got the data. But they know I was here. Can you scramble the tracker?" "Already on it. Just get to the drop point. And Lyra, don't die. I've got deadlines to meet." Lyra smirked despite herself. Alex's humor was one of the few things that kept her grounded. She dashed through the labyrinthine hallways, her footsteps muffled by sound-dampening tiles. As she turned a corner, a red drone hovered into view, its cylindrical body bristling with sensors. The drone emitted a high-pitched whir, scanning her with a beam of blue light. Before it could react, Lyra flung a small EMP grenade. The device exploded in a burst of static, sending the drone crashing to the floor. "Too slow," she muttered, stepping over the wreckage. Finally, she reached the exit hatch. It opened to reveal Near London's sprawling cityscape, a glittering maze of skyscrapers, floating gardens, and neon-lit bridges. The hum of hovercars filled the air, blending with the distant buzz of street vendors and pedestrians. Lyra climbed onto her hoverbike, its engine purring to life, as she engaged the autopilot. The bike shot into the sky, weaving through traffic. She glanced over her shoulder. No sign of pursuit, yet. "Alex," she said, her voice steadier now. "I'm on my way. Have the backup ready." "Roger that," Alex replied. "And Lyra, be careful. Kane doesn't play games." Neither did she. Back at her safe house, Lyra plugged the decryption module into her laptop. Lines of code scrolled across the screen, revealing folders with innocuous names like Project Horizon and Singularity Initiative. But Lyra knew better. As she clicked through the files, a chill ran down her spine. One document detailed plans for a neural control interface disguised as a medical advancement. Another described genetic engineering tools that could selectively target populations. Each breakthrough had the potential to transform lives, or destroy them. "God," she whispered. "This isn't progress. It's totalitarianism," Alex finished, stepping into the room. His casual demeanor did little to mask the concern in his eyes. "They've weaponized everything," Lyra said, gesturing to the screen. "These technologies could have saved millions, but Kane's turning them into tools of oppression." Alex leaned over her shoulder, his brow furrowing. "This isn't just about profit. It's about control, absolute, unyielding control. We need to expose this." Lyra nodded. "We will. But it won't be easy. Kane's got the resources of an empire, and he's not afraid to use them." A sudden beep interrupted their conversation. Lyra's laptop displayed an alert, incoming transmission. She hesitated, then accepted the call. A distorted voice crackled through the speakers. "Dr. Sorrell, I assume you've seen the files?" Lyra stiffened. "Who is this?" "Someone who wants the same thing you do, freedom. Novodinix has a chokehold on innovation, and it needs to end. Meet me at Grid Point 7 tomorrow night. I can help you." The transmission cut off before she could respond. "Do you trust them?" Alex asked. "No," Lyra admitted. "But if they can help us stop Kane, I'll take the risk." Alex nodded. "Then we'd better prepare. Novodinix won't let you walk away unscathed." Lyra's gaze returned to the files on her screen. The weight of what she'd uncovered settled heavily on her shoulders. "Let them come," she said quietly. "I'm not backing down." That night, as Neil London buzzed with life outside, Lyra sat alone in the glow of her computer. She knew the path ahead would be treacherous, but the alternative, doing nothing, was unthinkable. Somewhere in the city, Victor Kane was already planning his next move. But so was she. And this time, she wouldn't be running. Neil London never truly slept. The city buzzed with relentless energy, its neon-lit skyline casting a kaleidoscope of colors against the low-hanging clouds. Dr. Lyra Sorrell navigated the chaotic streets, her hoverbike weaving between towering skyscrapers and bustling pedestrian bridges. Tonight, her destination was Grid Point 7, a forgotten corner of the city where shadows thrived and secrets were currency. The meeting spot was a crumbling warehouse, dwarfed by sleek, modern buildings. Lyra parked her bike in an alley and approached cautiously, her footsteps silent on the rain-slicked pavement. Her wrist scanner flashed green, signaling no immediate threats, but she didn't lower her guard. The warehouse door creaked open, revealing a dimly lit interior. A lone figure stood in the center, silhouetted against a flickering console. "Dr. Sorrell," the figure said, voice distorted by a voice modulator. "I see you're punctual." "I didn't come here to exchange pleasantries," Lyra replied, her tone icy. "What do you know about Novodinix's plans?" The figure stepped forward, the modulator fading. A woman, sharp-eyed and scarred, extended a hand. "Call me Iris," she said. "I used to work for Kane, until I saw what he was capable of." Lyra hesitated, then shook her hand. "If this is a trap—" "It's not," Iris interrupted. "I'm here because I want to see Kane's empire crumble as much as you do." Iris gestured toward the console. "Take a look. These are the final phases of Operation Singularity. Neural control, mass surveillance, weaponized biotech, it's all there." Lyra scanned the data, her stomach twisting with every line. The scope of Kane's ambition was staggering. "This is worse than I thought," Lyra murmured. "He's not just consolidating power, he's reshaping society to fit his vision. That's why we need to move quickly," Iris said. "I know where they're building the neural interface prototypes. If we destroy the facility, we can delay his plans and buy time to expose him." Lyra's gaze narrowed. "Destroying it might slow him down, but it doesn't solve the problem. We need to reveal the truth to the public." "And how do you plan to do that?" Iris countered. "Kane owns the media, the networks, everything. The moment you try to go public, he'll bury you, or worse." Before Lyra could respond, her communicator buzzed. Alex's voice crackled through. "Lyra, we've got company. Novodinix operatives are swarming your safe house. You need to get out of there, now." Her heart sank. "I'm not at the safe house." "What?" Alex's voice was sharp with alarm. Then wait, are you meeting someone? Tell me you're not meeting someone. I don't have time for this, Lyra snapped. Get yourself somewhere safe. I'll contact you when I can. She ended the call and turned to Iris. Novodinix is on the move. If we're going to act, it has to be now. The ride to the prototype facility was tense and silent. Lyra and Iris sped through the city on separate hoverbikes, their paths lit by the glow of billboards and hovering drones. They reached the outskirts of Neo-London, where the glittering skyline gave way to industrial sprawl. The facility was heavily fortified, its perimeter lined with automated turrets and patrolling drones. Lyra's wrist scanner buzzed with a map of the area, courtesy of Iris. Entry points on the south side, Iris said, dismounting her bike. There's a blind spot in the security grid. We'll have 3 minutes to get inside before the next sweep. 3 minutes is generous, Lyra muttered, following her. They approached the fence, crouching low to avoid detection. Iris disabled the security sensors with a device that emitted a faint hum, and the two slipped through an opening. Inside, the facility was a maze of sterile corridors, illuminated by harsh white light. The hum of machinery filled the air, punctuated by the occasional clatter of footsteps. Lyra's pulse quickened as they moved deeper into the complex. We need the central lab, Iris whispered. That's where they're storing the prototypes. They rounded a corner and froze. A pair of guards stood in their path, armed and alert. Iris pulled out a small dart gun. Non-lethal, she said quietly, before taking aim. The guards crumpled to the floor silently. Efficient, Lyra remarked, stepping over the unconscious bodies. I've had practice, Iris replied, her voice devoid of humor. The central lab was an expansive room filled with rows of sleek consoles and cylindrical containment units. Lyra's breath caught as she saw what was inside. Neural interface devices, suspended in a viscous blue liquid. They looked innocuous, almost elegant, but she knew their true purpose. Iris moved to the nearest console and began typing furiously. I'll overload the system. Once the prototypes are destroyed, this facility will be useless. Lyra hesitated, scanning the room. Something felt off. We're missing something, she said. This is too easy. As if on cue, an alarm blared, and the room was bathed in red light. Too easy, huh? Iris said grimly, drawing her weapon. Guards poured into the lab, their weapons trained on the pair. Lyra ducked behind a console as bullets ricocheted off the metal. We need a way out, Lyra shouted. I'm working on it, Iris yelled back, her fingers flying over the console. The room shook as an explosion ripped through one of the containment units. Iris had triggered a chain reaction, sending sparks and debris flying. Move! Iris shouted, grabbing Lyra's arm. They sprinted toward the exit as the lab erupted into chaos. Guards shouted orders, and the air was thick with smoke and heat. Lyra's lungs burned as she pushed herself forward, dodging falling debris. They burst through the exit just as another explosion rocked the facility. The night air was a welcome relief, but they didn't stop running until they reached their bikes. As they sped away, Lyra glanced back at the burning facility. The sight filled her with a grim sense of satisfaction, but also a gnawing unease. This isn't over, she said, her voice barely audible over the roar of the engines. Iris nodded. No, it's not. But it's a start. Back in the safety of her hideout, Lyra contacted Alex. You okay? He asked, his voice tight with worry. For now, Lyra replied. But we've escalated things. Kane won't take this lightly. Good, Alex said. Maybe it's time he realized he's not untouchable. Lyra sighed, exhaustion settling over her. We've bought ourselves time, but we need more than that. We need a plan, a real one. And we'll make one, Alex said firmly. But first, get some rest. You'll need it. As the call ended, Lyra leaned back, her thoughts swirling. They had struck a blow against Novodinix, but the fight was far from over. The stakes were higher now, the risks greater. But she wasn't backing down. Not now. Not ever. The Resistance hideout was nothing like Lyra expected. Tucked beneath the ruins of an old metro station, it was a chaotic blend of repurposed tech and human determination. Screens flickered with live feeds of Novodinix facilities, and the hum of improvised machines filled the air. People moved with purpose, their faces a mix of exhaustion and resolve. "Welcome to the underground," Iris said, gesturing around. "Not exactly state-of-the-art, but it gets the job done." Lyra scanned the room, noting the diversity of the group. Engineers, hackers, medics, all united by a common enemy. Yet something about the place felt fractured. "How do you keep this running without being discovered?" Lyra asked. "We're good at staying invisible," Iris replied. "But Kane's reach grows every day. We're running out of time." A sharp voice cut through the din. "Who's the newcomer?" A man emerged from a cluster of monitors, his presence commanding attention. He was broad-shouldered, with a steely gaze that seemed to weigh Lyra in an instant. "This is Dr. Lyra Sorrel," Iris said. "She's the one who uncovered the Singularity files." The man crossed his arms. "I'm Jackson, the leader here. If you're looking for a safe haven, this isn't it. Everyone here pulls their weight." "I'm not here for shelter," Lyra said, meeting his gaze. "I'm here to stop Kane. If you're serious about fighting him, you'll need me." Jackson's lips twitched in a faint smirk. "We'll see about that." He turned to Iris. "Brief her. We've got work to do." Hours later, Lyra stood before a holographic map of Novodinix's global network. Iris and Jackson flanked her, their expressions grim. "This is the heart of Kane's operations," Iris explained, pointing to a blinking node. "The Phoenix facility. It's where he's consolidating the neural interface prototypes and integrating them into a global control network." "Control over what?" Lyra asked. "Everything," Jackson said. "Financial systems, infrastructure, communications. If he succeeds, he'll have the power to dictate the course of humanity." Lyra frowned. "Then we can't let him succeed. We need to take that facility offline." Jackson nodded. "That's the plan. But it won't be easy. The place is a fortress, and Kane's AI defenses are nearly impenetrable." "Nearly," Lyra said, a spark of determination in her voice. "I can breach the AI, but I'll need time. Can you keep their security distracted?" "We can handle that," Jackson said. "But once we move, there's no turning back. You ready for this?" Lyra glanced at the map, her mind racing. The odds were overwhelming, but the alternative was unthinkable. "I'm ready," she said firmly. The infiltration began under the cover of darkness. The resistance team moved in coordinated silence, each step calculated to avoid detection. Lyra and Jackson led the advance, their breath fogging in the cold night air. The Phoenix facility loomed ahead, its sleek design a stark contrast to the surrounding industrial wasteland. The perimeter was alive with drones and automated turrets, their movements precise and unrelenting. "Entry points on the east side," Iris whispered over the comms. "You'll have 30 seconds to disable the grid before the next patrol cycle." "Understood," Lyra replied. She knelt beside a control panel, her fingers dancing over the interface. Lines of code scrolled rapidly as she bypassed the first layer of security. "Grid's down," she said, standing. "Move," Jackson ordered. They slipped through the breach, their movements swift and deliberate. Inside, the facility was a labyrinth of sterile corridors, the air humming with the sound of hidden machinery. "Central server room is 2 levels down," Iris said. "You'll find the AI core there." Lyra nodded, her grip tightening on the small hacking device in her hand. Jackson and another operative, a wiry man named Cal, flanked her as they descended. The first wave of resistance came quickly. Guards rounded the corner, their weapons gleaming under harsh fluorescent lights. Jackson opened fire, his precision ruthless. Cal followed suit, his movements a blur of efficiency. Lyra pressed herself against the wall, her heart pounding. "Go!" Jackson barked, covering her as she sprinted down the corridor. She reached the server room, the massive door sealed with multiple layers of encryption. Activating her device, she began decoding the locks. Sweat beaded on her forehead as the timer on her wrist ticked down. "Lyra, you've got company!" Iris's voice crackled through the calm. She glanced back to see more guards converging. Jackson and Cal held them off, but the tension was palpable. "Almost there," Lyra muttered, her hands steady despite the chaos. The door hissed open, revealing a cavernous room filled with towering servers and the glowing core of Kane's AI system. "I'm in," she said. "Good," Iris replied. "You've got 5 minutes before reinforcements arrive. Make it count." Lyra approached the core, its pulsing light casting eerie shadows. Plugging her device into the system, she began the upload. The AI's defenses were formidable, layers of encryption designed to repel even the most skilled intruders. But Lyra was relentless. Her fingers flew over the controls, each keystroke dismantling another barrier. 3 minutes, Jackson warned, his voice strained. The AI retaliated, flooding the system with countermeasures. Lyra gritted her teeth, countering each attack with calculated precision. "Come on," she muttered. The upload reached 100%. The AI core flickered, its glow dimming as the Resistance's virus took hold. "We're done here," she said, pulling the device free. "Not yet," Jackson said, covering her retreat. "They'll come after us with everything they've got. Let's move." The escape was chaotic. The facility's alarms blared, and reinforcements poured in from every direction. Lyra's legs burned as she ran, her heart pounding with adrenaline. They burst into the open air, the night sky a welcome sight. Resistance operatives covered their retreat, holding the line as Lyra and Jackson reached the extraction point. As they boarded the transport, Lyra glanced back at the burning facility. The mission had succeeded, but the cost was heavy. Back at the hideout, the team regrouped. Exhaustion hung over them, but so did a sense of accomplishment. Lyra sat in front of a console, reviewing the data they had extracted. Kane's plans were crippled, but she knew the fight was far from over. "This is just the beginning," she said, her voice steady. Jackson nodded. "But it's a hell of a start." For the first time in days, Lyra allowed herself a small smile. The road ahead was uncertain, but she wasn't alone. Together, they would face whatever came next. The Phoenix facility lay in ruins, but the victory felt fleeting. Lyra sat in the dim glow of a Resistance terminal, her fingers hovering over the keys. Lines of code danced on the screen, data they had retrieved in their escape. Yet the more she analyzed, the clearer it became. This was just the surface. Novodinix's reach extended far deeper than she'd anticipated. Behind her, the Resistance hideout buzzed with subdued energy. Operatives patched wounds, recalibrated equipment, and reviewed plans. Jackson entered the room, his presence magnetic despite his exhaustion. "You've been staring at that screen for hours," he said, his voice gruff but not unkind. "I'm not done," Lyra replied without looking up. "The files point to a secondary project, something called Directive Zero. If Kane's neural network was just Phase 1, this must be the endgame." Jackson leaned against the doorframe, crossing his arms. "And you think it's bigger than Singularity?" Lyra finally turned to face him. "I don't think. I know." Before he could respond, Iris appeared, her face grim. "We've got a problem." "What kind of problem?" Jackson asked, straightening. "Novodinix isn't just regrouping, they've tracked us. Satellite scans show increased activity in the sector. We've got maybe an hour before they hit us." The room fell silent, the weight of her words settling like a stone. Lyra's chest tightened. The Resistance was strong, but they weren't equipped to fend off a full-scale assault. "We need to move," Jackson said, already issuing orders through his communicator. "Iris, start evacuation protocols. Lyra, grab what you need. We're not leaving anything for them to find." Lyra stood, her mind racing. She couldn't shake the feeling that the timing was too precise. Novodinix had acted too quickly. As the team scrambled to pack and dismantle their equipment, Alex's voice crackled over the comms. "Lyra, I've been monitoring Novodinik's chatter. They've got someone on the inside. That's how they found you. Lyra's stomach dropped. A mole? Yeah. Someone close enough to know your moves. Her gaze darted across the room, scanning the faces of her supposed allies. Suspicion clawed at her mind, but there was no time to dwell on it. Alex, can you pinpoint them? Not yet, he replied. But I'm working on it. Just stay alert. The evacuation was a tense operation. Resistance members moved in coordinated chaos, loading critical supplies onto transport vehicles. The air crackled with urgency as alarms blared in the distance, Novodinik's forces closing in. Lyra and Jackson loaded the last of the data drives into a secure compartment. Iris approached, her expression unreadable. We're ready to move, she said. But there's one more thing. What is it? Jackson asked. I intercepted a transmission, Iris said, holding up a handheld device. Novodinik isn't just coming for us, they're coming for Lyra. Lyra's pulse quickened. Me? You've become their priority target, Iris said. Kane wants you alive. Jackson's jaw tightened. That complicates things. We need to split up. Lyra, you'll come with me. Iris, take the others and rendezvous at the fallback point. Lyra opened her mouth to protest, but Jackson cut her off. No arguments. If they're targeting you, it's safer this way. As the convoy split, Lyra rode in the back of Jackson's transport. The vehicle hummed softly, its reinforced frame designed for stealth. Yet despite the calm exterior, her mind churned. Who in the resistance would betray them? And why? Something's on your mind, Jackson said, breaking the silence. You think there's really a mole? She asked. Jackson hesitated, his gaze fixed on the horizon. It's possible. We've been careful, but Kane's good at exploiting weaknesses. Good doesn't cover it, Lyra said bitterly. He's always 3 steps ahead. It feels like no matter what we do, he's waiting. That's because he's afraid of you, Jackson said, his voice firm. You've seen through his facade, and you're a threat to his plans. Don't underestimate the power of that. Lyra wanted to believe him, but doubt gnawed at her. Hours later, they arrived at a remote hideout, a derelict warehouse nestled in the shadow of a mountain range. Jackson led Lyra inside, his rifle slung over his shoulder. The place was sparse but functional, equipped with enough supplies for a short stay. As Lyra set up her equipment, Alex's voice crackled through her communicator. I've got something. The mole, it's someone high-ranking. Close to Jackson. Her blood ran cold. Are you sure? Positive, Alex said. Be careful, Lyra. I don't like this. She glanced at Jackson, who was tinkering with a weapon on the other side of the room. His movements were methodical, his expression unreadable. Could it really be him? Her communicator buzzed again. They're tracking your location, Alex said urgently. You need to move, now. Lyra stood, her heart pounding. Jackson, we've been compromised. He looked up sharply. What are you talking about? Alex traced the signal. Someone here is feeding Novodinik our coordinates. Jackson's eyes darkened. And you think it's me? I don't want to, Lyra said. But the evidence. Save it, he snapped. If you don't trust me, you're welcome to leave. But if you're wrong, it'll cost us both our lives. Before Lyra could respond, the sound of engines echoed outside. They're here, Jackson said, his voice calm but steely. The attack was swift and brutal. Novodinik's operatives stormed the warehouse, their weapons cutting through the thin walls like paper. Lyra and Jackson fought side by side, their mistrust momentarily forgotten in the chaos. Go! Jackson shouted, covering her as she sprinted toward the exit. Outside, the cold air hit her like a slap. She ducked behind a stack of crates, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Jackson joined her moments later, his rifle smoking. We need to split up, he said. They'll expect us to stick together. Lyra hesitated, her instincts screaming that something was wrong. But before she could argue, Jackson grabbed her arm. "Trust me," he said, his voice low but insistent. Against her better judgment, she nodded. As he disappeared into the shadows, Lyra activated her communicator. "Alex," she whispered. "Track Jackson. If he's the mole, I need to know." "I'm already on it," Alex replied. "Stay safe, Lyra." The night stretched on, a tense game of cat and mouse between Lyra and her pursuers. She moved silently through the terrain, her mind racing with questions. If Jackson was the mole, why hadn't he turned her in? And if he wasn't, who was? As dawn broke, Lyra found herself at the edge of a cliff, the sprawling city below bathed in golden light. She activated her communicator one last time. "Alex, what did you find?" There was a pause, then his voice came through, heavy with dread. "Lyra, it's Iris. She's the mole." Lyra's breath caught. "Iris? She sold us out," Alex said. "Jackson's clean. But she's been working with Kane from the start." The revelation hit like a punch to the gut. Lyra's mind reeled, but one thing was clear: she couldn't let this betrayal go unanswered. The fight was far from over, but now she knew where to aim.